Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about the unschooling mindset, the things we need to do, particularly for people who are new to this idea of unschooling, what we need to do in order to get our brains there to be able to do this, and what we need to focus on, and how good it is for the kids with a lot of the stuff that we're going to do, and how it affects the entire family. So we're going to go into all that today. Little update on our family. We are currently in a season of work. We're just grinding along as a family. My wife just got a promotion where she's going to be part-time remote, which is fantastic. This moves us along into being able to be fully remote and be able to go anywhere because we're building our box truck into a stealth RV. So I'm super excited. We're hoping that she goes fully remote soon as well, but this is a good first step, especially since our requirements on our time are going to increase as the weather gets nicer, because we're going to be building a lot more in that box truck to get a little more hands-on. We have a builder right now, and we're going to jump in and do some of the stuff ourselves too, so it'll be a lot of fun. So with that, let's dive in. Today we're going to explore how unschooling challenges traditional education paradigms by providing a fresh perspective that shifts the way we approach learning, parenting, and even life itself. We'll unpack the mindset change that can transform your entire view on education and child development. But first, I'd like us to understand the traditional education system's limitation. If you send your kid off to school, what are the limitations? So one, and this is just the most obvious to me, is the one-size-fits-all approach. And that's, it's not accommodating to any different learning styles or interest or developmental readiness. It's a one-size-fits-all approach, and anything else is a deviation from that norm. And that's what we're left with in the traditional education system. The focus on standardized testing and external validation, meaning like grades and just, all these expectations, stifles creativity and curiosity. Excuse me. In my opinion, kids aren't able to take risks. And if we want to create curious, innovative thinkers of tomorrow, which is what I think the future holds for us, we're going to have to create people who are creative and innovative and take those risks. And the school system does not support that. I really think that's a huge limitation. There's top-down instruction as well, where they're going to tell you what you should do to be successful, and then you do it, and then you get validation by a good grade. And now you are a worker bee. You're always taking top-down instruction. That's what you're trained to do. That's what the school system provides. Considering that the majority of the workforce in the U.S. is predicted to be working for themselves in some capacity, either freelancing or entrepreneurship, by the end of the decade, I think that is probably a paradigm that we need to start questioning, because it's not preparing our children. The fear-based focus that traditional schools endorse, promote. If you don't do what we tell you, we're going to give you a bad grade. We're going to put it on your record. You're not going to be able to participate in whatever you need that you want to participate with to be successful. They use fear as a tool to get you to do what they want, as opposed to the future, where I see you really have to get drawn to it because you're going to have a lot of intrinsic motivation to get off your butt and go do it yourself. I don't think that is a good model for the future. These are just some of the many problems that I see with the traditional education systems and the limitations that it has. And I could go on and I have made entire episodes on this. So understanding that, where do we go from here? Well, unschooling is what I propose, especially with younger children who need free play, who need the ability to make choices for themselves, to learn to love learning. Well, how does unschooling actually challenge traditional education? Well, unschooling encourages child-led, interest-based learning with no mandatory curriculum. Child-led, what does that mean? It means the child gets to choose what they're going to spend their time on. They're going to be the captains of their ship. I think we need autonomy in order to feel like we are doing what's best for us. And I think that has to do with any age. Now, I think that children definitely need guidance, and our job is to help them make those decisions in the most responsible ways we can. But I don't think we're telling them what to do, when they should do it, and how much time they should spend on it. We can encourage things, but I'm not going to force. What about interest-based? Well, interest-based learning is whatever they're interested in, whatever they are desiring to learn about at the time. We're like that too. If we see a need to learn something and it stands in the way of us getting whatever job done that we have in front of us, well, then we're motivated to learn. I'm interested right now. You have my ears. Or it could be something that they just find really fascinating. And I would say that most kids are very, very curious and want to know more about stuff. So lean into whatever they want to learn about. You're going to have them learn quicker, more efficiently, with less resistance, and retain it better than if you were to force them over and over and over again. That's been my experience personally and what I see with my children. What else? Mandatory curriculum. Yeah, so if mandatory curriculum is traditional school, then the opposite is unschooling, where you have no mandatory curriculum. The curriculum was created by some quote-unquote expert who is deciding what they're going to tell you is ahead, what normal is. Your kid could be ahead of that or behind it, and they would label you with that, ahead or behind, right? When in reality, everyone is a little bit different. A mandatory curriculum means it's not personalized. It's that one-size-fits-all approach, right? Unschooling rejects that and says, we're going to allow the curriculum to appear itself. Now, I advocate for something called intentional unschooling. And that's just a name I gave the brand of unschooling that I do, which is high parental responsibility combined with unschooling. So we're going to provide a ton of resources, the exposure to different things, and even give some nudges towards things that we know are going to be beneficial for them. Kids are looking for what they don't know what they need to know. They're looking for some kind of feedback to say, yeah, I'm on the right path. Now, most of it they're not. Most of it they want to just do what they want to do. But sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I just see my kids absorbing when I say that, this is going to be really important later. And they're like, yeah, I can see that. It's another part of our job is pointing out exactly where they're going to need to use that in the future. So that way, when you say, yes, you will need to use addition as a part of your adult life, they've already seen you use addition and they know it's going to be necessary for them when they turn into an adult. So I think these are all positive ways to go about unschooling. And when you compare it to that traditional schooling, you see that it's really just kind of the opposite. We want kids to fall in love with learning, not be forced to do learning and end up hating it. We want kids to learn how to teach themselves, not rely on top-down instruction. We want them to be innovative and creative and not just rely on other people to tell them what to think. Unschooling also values learning through real life experiences rather than artificial ones. Also, unschooling promotes self-discovery and curiosity as well, as opposed to just do what you're told and think about what we want you to think about right now, and we'll tell you when to move on. But there's a big practicality in unschooling, meaning the lessons just kind of pop up. So you're teaching them how to be an adult. You're teaching them how to interact with people, with life, with everything. You're taking them on the journey and you're giving them a mentorship or an apprenticeship, you might call it, on life. So bring your kids with you and have them learn what you're doing and how to do it, how to be adults by the time they're close to adulthood. That's my goal, is my kids are able to, they would know how to live on their own by the age of 16, that I would feel confident they could actually do it. That's my goal. I don't know if that's realistic, but it seems like it should be. So here we go. Moving on. Rethinking what education should look like. So we just got done comparing traditional schooling and home education, or rather unschooling. What should education look like? Well, education, in my opinion, should be a lifelong journey and not just a phase before adulthood. I think that growing and learning are linked at the hip. They cannot be separated. In order to grow, you have to learn. In order to learn, you have to grow. You have to be open to it. You have to accept that you're always learning. People who know everything are also the toughest people to teach. They have stopped learning. They've stopped growing. And I think that's what a lot of adults get to. But I want to frame for my children that life is a journey, that life is an adventure, that life is something to be curious about and learn constantly. And be adaptive. We know the pace of change is only increasing. It's accelerating. So our children are going to have to deal with more change than we had. And we had the most change out of any generation in history. We need to accept that change is going to happen and it's going to continue to accelerate. So being adaptable, I think, is something that's going to be very beneficial for children and that I want to instill in them. So unschooling is a natural choice for me and my children, and I think it prepares kids for that. I also think education shouldn't just the goal should be creating them into adults, making them a good adults, right? I already kind of mentioned this. Fostering self-sufficiency, critical thinking, the ability to just navigate life holistically. I think this is something that is also going to be very important, especially when we look at the mental health of the world right now. It just doesn't seem to be very stable. And I think that making sure you're holistically taking care of your children's education, teaching them how to be a healthy whole adult is going to be very critical in the future. And I'll stop there. How unschooling fosters intrinsic motivation and curiosity. So I mentioned earlier that you're going to want if you want to choose. I mean, if you're choosing, you're going to want a kid who's motivated internally, that you don't have to externally motivate a child. Well, I think the way you do that is build their curiosity. I think this is where schools really fail, right? they tell you what to do. They don't try and coax your curiosity. Maybe some good teachers try, but they have to stick to that curriculum, and it doesn't matter if you're not interested or not. But if we're talking about trying to instill an intrinsic motivation, a drive from within, we're going to spark curiosity, and that's where unschooling really shines. Because unschooling nurtures a love for learning by allowing children to explore their passions, whatever they're really interested in, whatever they really care about. I think it shifts the focus from external rewards, like maybe good grades, or the fear of not getting bad grades, or the fear of getting bad grades, I should say, to internal curiosity and satisfaction, something that's a little bit more rewarding. And I think that's a much more healthy way to interact with life. So why teach my kid the world? Why put them in this false construct of school that does not reflect reality for the most part? Why not raise them in the real world and teach them how to do that? I think that's probably better, and that's the path I'm going to take for my kids. Moving on, the impact of unschooling on family dynamics. I think that's something we should also really focus on when we're unschooling. Unschooling encourages collaboration. I think families learn together. They learn together in real time, something that you might not know. Hey, it's a good time to refresh yourself on it. And if you don't know it, then you might want to question whether you really need to know it. I mean, there's arguably things that people miss and they don't need for their current career, but they might need it in their second. Either way, if you teach them to learn, they'll be able to learn it. You know, teach someone how to learn, they can go learn it later in adulthood. But there are some things that we generally know that should be good, so definitely go after those, even if you don't use it in your real life. But honestly, everyone's learning their whole life, right? You have to. Otherwise, you're stagnant and falling behind because the world's constantly changing. Learn with your child. You can get updated on some of your history if you don't know enough. If you're weak on history, you don't need to know everything. There's so many resources out there. If they have a question that you don't know the answer to, look it up with them. Make it a game. Make it fun. I think this can actually build relationships and makes you a collaborator in their life. You're participating in life with them. You're facilitating things happening. I think it's a cool dynamic, especially with the younger kids who are, between 5 and probably, I don't know, the upper limit, maybe 12 or 13. I'm not sure. But I'm in that phase right now with an 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we got a lot of questions and we do a lot of learning from just those questions alone. There is a bond between the parent and child that deepens as you explore this new idea and come into challenges together, especially if you're learning something that they might see you change your opinion. I think that's a cool thing to do together, and I think that bond just strengthens. Or when you see something work for the first time that you've been trying to figure out, like say you get the right answer to a math problem, or you get the right answer to, you figure something out that was like a challenge online. We do some of those online challenges with math, and like really hard ones, and they get it, and it's just like, oh wow, you really just do feel that bond building, and it's something fun that you can do with your kids. Moving on. Why unschooling is a game changer for future workforce preparedness? Well, unschooling builds key skills, these meta skills like adaptability, adapting to change, self-teaching, creativity, resilience, these meta skills that I like to talk about that are transferable between any job that you would really do. If you were a self-motivated person, intrinsically motivated, who is able to change, to adapt themselves to that new job, and you can teach yourself and you're creative and come up with, critical thinking, problem solving skills that you needed to be able to do that job better, you're going to be rewarded in the market, I do believe. And I think that's what's going to be required in the future, as half that workforce is going to be entrepreneurs or freelancers. They're going to need to come up with their own direction. So they're also going to need a self-compass on the direction that they want to go, because no one's walking them through it or telling them this is what the next steps are. That is very rare anymore. People might know it, but no one's kind of walking them through it. I do think these skills are going to be increasingly valuable, and the reason is because there's just this rapidly changing job market out there. You're going to have to stay up to date with technology. This is one of the reasons why I allow my kids to use technology relatively young. I don't get them immersed in technology as screens all the time, but I do think they're going to need it. But really what I focus on to prepare them for the future is giving them the basic foundation to be able to build on, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, right? That kind of stuff they can build on, and from there on, give them the tools to be able to teach themselves. Expose them to new ideas, new different things, and then help them find what they're good at, what they're not good at, help them get to know themselves better. Focus on those meta skills, focus on where their interest lies to be able to build on their strengths. And I'm hoping that prepares them for the future workforce. That's my strategy. Moving on, the mindset shift that we got to make when we're doing unschooling, to make unschooling work, I should say. The shift that needs to happen is that the teacher will show up when the lesson needs to be learned. Okay? That they will learn what they need to by the end of your time with your child. It's about trusting the process and letting go, which is a big challenge for me. The need to control every aspect of your kid's learning. For me, I would be very, 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 very motivated and want to press my kids and pressure them to do more. That's why unschooling is such a challenge for me. I'm a go-getter. I like to accomplish things, and I want my kids to do the same. But I need to let go. I need to back up. And that was the big mindset shift that I needed to make. Embrace the flexibility. Embrace it. Have patience, something I don't have a lot of, and the belief that my child is capable and a natural learner. And if I really do believe that, then trust in the process. My kids learn really fast. They're very efficient at learning, and when they haven't been resistant to what I've been putting in front of them, they might not want to do it right when I put it in front of them and say, hey, this is really important. They eventually do understand it, though, and they do want to go back and learn it, especially when I've pointed it out a million times. So I think that the big thing for parents is really just kind of letting go and allowing the process to happen. Fit into that facilitator role, provide those resources, exposure, but then kind of like let them make decisions for their life. And if they're making a mistake, point it out. Start to build up yourself as that trusted advisor that's on their team, because they're going to need them. Moving on. Unschooling for mental health and well-being. Traditional education system contributes to anxiety and burnout, in my opinion. I don't think it's good for mental health when you get these bullies out there and you have the threat of violence and you have nonsense with the teachers. You have just a whole bunch of dynamics that are false constructs. And I just don't think that living in that false world, segregated by age, I just think it's not necessarily the best for mental health and well-being. You're not even teaching the kids how to take care of themselves. Unschooling allows children to explore everything, the world, without the pressure of grades, timelines, society's expectations on them, and where they should be, what they should know, what they should do, just all these pressures. I don't think it's good. I think that setting kids up for the real world, success in the real world, is probably best. And I know that's what everyone advertises we're doing with school, but I don't think it does. Again, I don't see anything wrong with a curriculum if the child wants to do it. I just don't want to force them to do a curriculum at the expense of their mental health. I remember being so defeated having to go to school. There are songs, so many songs written about not having to go to school anymore and how much people can't stand school. I don't want my kid to hate learning. And I think hating something, not looking forward to the next day when you're going to bed, is going to take a toll on them. And teaching them that they have to accept that and that's okay, to me is just an awful way to live. And I don't want that for my kids. What are some actionable tips for you guys? Encourage curiosity and exploring by providing resources to support your child's interest, whether it's books, online courses, hands-on experiences, whatever it might be. Shift from a focus on grades, right? Grades are kind of the school systems, the traditional school systems control on your kid to make them do what they don't want to do. And unschooling goes against that. Remember, we're focused on building on following their interest and letting them choose. So instead, when you're praising your child, focus on their effort, their creativity, their personal growth. Only compare them to their previous self, right? Like, look how much you've grown. You don't want to compare them to other kids. Shift that focus to all that, and I think you're going to have a much happier child. Create an environment where your child feels safe, comfortable experimenting, making mistakes, discovering their own path, learning about their self. I think that's the path for the future. Seek out unschooling communities and support inspiration and share experiences with others. We have a community online at Unschooled Unleashed on Facebook. We have a Twitter account. We have, or X, I should say. So, jump on there, interact with me. So in conclusion, what I want is we've explored how unschooling represents a profound shift in the way we think about education. And by focusing on intrinsic motivation, creativity, real-life experiences, we can help our children grow into self-sufficient, adaptable, and curious, happy adults. Let go of traditional expectations and embrace the mindset that allows your child to lead the way in their own learning journey. And in doing so, transform your view on education and even your life. So with that, I'm going to end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.